Hey, it's Tommy Gunn from Cracked Rabbit Gaming, and this is part 3 of my beginner tutorial series. And in this video, we are going to learn all about switches and variables and self-switches, and even install a script and do some move routes. So let's get started. Just a little recap of where we are. So we've got our character, who is a dog, that we've changed. We have this girl, and she wants a potion, and if you have a potion, she will ask you if she can have it. If you say yes, she'll take the potion, give you some gold, give you some experience points, say thanks. A self switch will turn on, which will then go to this page, which just makes it so you can't give her any more potions, and she says, I don't need any more potions. If you say no, she says, why not? And that's about it. And we have this door to go into a house, and this chest, which I'm going to move a little bit closer, just so we don't have to run back and forth as much. And this treasure chest was just a quick event that we created this way. And the treasure chest just gives us a high potion and 5 regular potions. Okay, so first of all, I got a question about whether you can create a quest that will ask for more than just 1 potion. What if you want her to ask for 3 potions or something? And of course, yes, you can do that. And that goes nicely with the question about how variables work. So first, let's use a switch, though. Or I'll just explain what these are. So these conditions, you'll see you have 2 switches that you can set. These are the same. This does the same thing. It just gives you 2 options to use them. And variables and self switches, which we already learned a little bit about, having a self switch on. Now, the thing that's a little annoying is that there's no way to just go and check your variables or your switches just like in the database like you can with everything else. The only way that I know of to check your variables is to actually go into an event and go into this first tab and game progression, and then you've got your switches, variables, and then self switches. So we know that self switches are A, B, C, D, and they can be on or off, just like a light switch. It's either on or off. And same thing with regular switches. The difference, of course, is that a regular switch is not unique to that event, but it's a global switch. So you've got all these you can use, and you can change your maximum so you can have even more, but they just group these 20 at a time, so it's a little bit easier to go through, and then you can name them here. So whereas a self switch, only she knows that the switch has been flipped. A regular control switch is global, so everybody can know that the switch has been flipped and not just her. The main reason why you want to use a self switch is that it keeps you from cluttering up all these switches. You know, if every single treasure chest used a global switch here, you would just have so many on here, and it would just be so hard to find something later in the game. And then variables, you can see you can do all these arithmetic operations here. So you can set it to a number, and you can add, subtract, multiply, divide, mod, and they give you some more complicated things down here. But for now, we're just going to stick with constants, so we'll just set it to a number. We can add a number to it. And first, let's start off with something a little bit simple. So let's start with just a regular switch. So I'm also going to move these a little bit closer so it's easier. So let me just do a quick map here, and I will add this little fence around here, and that's good. And I'm going to create a new So just create a new event by double clicking and change this graphic just like we've done before. And I think, yeah, there's a sort of a guard here. I'll have him facing to the right. So I'm just going to put this guard kind of blocking this. And actually I could just put it right in the doorway there. And I will say complete her quest and I'll move. So now, how is he going to know whether you completed her quest? Because as it is right now, when you complete her quest here, the self switch goes on and that's it. That's all that happens. So let's set a regular switch. So we could actually remove the self switch and just use a regular switch, but I'll just have it do both. So I'll just do number 1 is fine. Girl quest complete. And you can think of switches, they're Boolean values, so you can think of them as like true, false, even though they call it on, off. You can also just think of it as true, false. So you try to write them, it's kind of weird with the terminology, like how you should name these switches, but you really want to be descriptive, because once you get a lot of switches or variables, then, if I just said girl on here or quest complete, it'd be like, well, what girl, what quest, like, and this is still maybe not a very good name in a full game, but since this is just a tiny little demo, I'll just leave it at this. But you want to be more descriptive. So just to make sure that, like, if you're looking through these later, you'll know what it means. So this switch we're going to turn on, and remember they're always off by default. So we'll have this turn on, and I don't know that the order really matters, but I'll just make sure that the self switch is at the very end so that it'll go here at the end. So now it'll turn our global switch on and the self switch. And now how is he actually going to know? So now we have to do something to let him know that this is complete. So what we could do is another conditional branch, and the condition is this quest is complete. So if this quest is complete, and that's on, so true or on, however you want to think of it, then, do something, and we could have him move. Otherwise, do something else. So, yeah, so I could move this. I just cut that and pasted it here. So if the quest is off, he'll say complete her quest and I'll move. And if it is complete, we'll have him move. Now, just so I can mention this first, you'll see this autonomous movement over here. So right now he's fixed, so he doesn't move, which is what we want, because we want him to be blocking that little area. Let's say there's a treasure chest in there or something. So you can set this to random, so he moves around, and his speed that he walks, and then the frequency of his steps. So the frequency is like he'll take a step and then he'll pause, and this is kind of how long he pauses. And then this is the speed he's actually moving. So if you have this at the highest, frequency at the highest, he'll slowly walk around, but he'll never actually pause. And if you have the speed at the highest, but the frequency at the lowest, he'll pause for a long time, then run to the next step, and then pause, and then run. So anyway, so that's how you want to think about these. So if you want to just have a continuous movement, you want the frequency to be at the highest, and then you can change your speed to whatever. Otherwise, he's going to keep pausing in between, and that kind of looks weird depending. But we don't want him to actually move around. If we set this to random, he would just randomly move. And you can have it approach, or we can do custom. And so if we do custom, you get to choose the move route. And you'll see that this pulls up a whole lot more commands. So now you can just do it in order, move down, move left, move right, wherever you want him to move. Move towards the player, move away from the player, step forward, so that depends on which way he's facing, and you can have him turn, so you can have him turn and then step forward. But this could matter if you approach him from a different side, then he could step backwards, basically step away from you, because he'll turn to face you when you talk to him. So things like that. So you see there's a lot of options, and you can even turn switches on. So this is kind of like you might forget that so many commands are in here, but there are a lot of commands in here, and sometimes this is the only way to do it. And this doesn't let us choose anything from this box up here because we're doing the move root of this actual event. But if I cancel this and leave this on fixed, and then we'll go here for after you complete the quest, and now we can add a move root in this in here rather than just part of the event. And so that is under the second tab, movement, and set move root. And so now you'll see you can select something up here. So you can select the player, so you can actually have your player move somewhere even though this is in this event. So remember, again, try to stress that you shouldn't think of events as like an actual character. Don't think of this event as this guard and that other event as the girl. This is just an event that happens to look like this guard, but you can control other things with this event. So I can control the player here, and these, you'll notice I did not name these other events. So one of these is the treasure chest, and one of these is the girl. And if we wanted to control those, then it would be a good idea to actually name it, but I didn't bother naming them. So you'll see up here, EV003 is right here. So that's this event, but of course don't select that. Just choose this event if you want him to move, and that is what we want to do. So I will have him move to the right, and then I'll have him move down a couple, 3, and then I'll have him turn to the right. And repeat action means it's just going to loop this, and that's not what we want to do. We don't want to loop this. And skip if cannot move, so if he can't move then it'll skip that action, but we don't want to skip that. And then wait for completion, so it will do the whole move, and then it'll let you move your player again. Otherwise, if you don't have wait for completion on, then he can just, if you have a really long move route, for instance, you don't want the player to be frozen there while he's taking his time to walk somewhere. So, and then another thing you should notice is that there's this switch through on, which is also down here in the event options. You can have through on all the time, but you can also just turn it on and off here. So, and you'll see that these other options down here are up here. So if you want to change these just temporarily, you can use a move route, even if that's all you're doing, even if they're even if they're not actually moving anywhere, you just want to turn through on and turn through off again, you could do it through here. So now the problem with how the event is right now, I guess I can just show you. Let's just do that for now. So if we complete the quest, then he should do this, and I'll just have him on normal speed so we're not waiting forever. And let's just play test this. So we need to go complete her quest. So we need to get the potions, and I'll talk to him. Complete her quest. Yes. So now that switch should have changed, and I'll mention right now, if you hit F9 on your keyboard, it will bring up, this is just for debugging, it will bring up all your switches, so you can see like S on the left side of here and then V down here, so that's for variables. And so this very top one, because it was number 1, girl quest complete, is on. And so then we'll just hit the like menu key, your B key, depends on what you have it set to. So we'll just get out of that. Anyway, so we saw that the switch was indeed on, so now let's go talk to him. And now it's all frozen. And why is that? Because we set him to complete his move, but he can't move because we are in the way. So I could have had him move backwards and move down if that's what I wanted to do. But let's not do that. Let's try something else. So first, I could have my player move out of the way. I could turn through on in the move route so that he could actually just move right through us, which might be a good idea to do anyway with something like this, just in case something crazy happens, especially if you have more characters walking around. Because remember, you can have random characters walking, and what if one of those characters gets in his way? Then he's just going to get stuck. So that can mess things up. You can do things to make sure that never happens. Just make sure that characters can't actually reach him because they're fenced off in another area or something. But in this case, so first I'll do another move route since I want to do the player, and have the player move to the right, so he's basically backing up, and wait for completion is fine. And then that should be fine. So I will be here because the only way I can talk to him is if I'm right on this square. I can't talk to him diagonally. So I'll move backwards, and then he'll move just one space to the right and then move down. And that should work fine. And also, it's always good to let the player know what's happening. So I'll just say, great. And that's fine. So let's play test that. And again, we need to actually complete the quest. Talk to her. And there we go. So now he has moved over. And that's precisely what we want. But let's see what happens if we run in here and then run back out. And look at that. Now he's back where he was. And luckily I can still do that because I have completed the quest. But what if there's more code in there, so it doesn't, just if as the code gets complicated, maybe that wouldn't work anymore. Maybe we wouldn't be able to keep telling him to move. Plus, that's just weird. Like, why is he always right back there, and why do we have to keep talking to him? What if we want him to just stay down there? Well, that's where a script comes into play, and I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place in terms of order of doing things, but how about we just install that script now, since that's where we're at. And so the script we want to get is called remember event positions, or remember event position. And here it is. I already downloaded it and saved it. And scripts are just text files. Sometimes people put them up as text, as a text file, or they you just copy it right from the forum or the website. Just the text is right on the page or whatever. It's a good idea to save them onto your computer just to make sure you have it, so you don't forget where you got it. And in case you mess something up, you can always get that original script again. But anyway, so this is called a remember event position. The script is on my website. The link is in the description. But also it's made by Shaz, who's a forum moderator on RPG Maker Web, and she's awesome. And this is a really great script, and it's very simple. So we're just going to copy the whole thing, and that's what you have to do. You have to just copy and paste it. There's no way to import scripts, oddly enough. So remember, our script editor is here, F11, and I mentioned all this stuff in the very first beginner video, but all your scripts pretty much just want to go under materials. I don't really know why they call it that. So we'll just right click and insert. It says insert here just to remind you. And so now we have an empty line here, and we will paste that script in, and you'll see that it does some nice color coding on it, so it makes it a little bit easier to see. Green stuff is comments. And most scripts have, the author, the description, how to install. Of course, the installation is pretty much always the same, just paste it into a materials slot. And the order does matter sometimes, depending on how many, if you have a lot of scripts that kind of do sort of the same thing, you might, sometimes they conflict with each other, so maybe you'll need one to be above the other or below the other to make sure that they, one kind of takes control over the other one. So that they both work correctly. So, and they usually say in there, if there is some conflict that they know about, make sure to put this at the top of the material section or the bottom or whatever. So, So you'll notice we also have to name it because it did not put a name in. So remember event, whatever, position. So this is a fairly simple script. It is not something you just install and leave alone. There are some scripts where you just have to configure it a little bit in here, and they always explain how to use it. I mean, any of the big scripts you're going to get, they explain exactly how you use it. And sometimes you can configure stuff. You turn things true or false, you know, if you want it to do a certain thing. In this case, what this script does is remember event position, so we don't have that problem where that guard was back to his original post, because that didn't make sense. So we want him to stay where he was. So here is some of the explanations. If you're doing it from a set move root command, which is what we did, it says just use save position and forget position. So if you want him to forget where he was, you can do that. So I'm just going to copy this text, save underscore POS, and then parentheses. Otherwise, you'd do a script call with this whole line. But anyway, so we'll hit OK, and we don't need to worry about the rest of that. Like that was all the code under there. So now let's go here, hit spacebar, and now we're going to go and add a script call inside this move root. So remember, if it's inside the move root, you can just do this save underscore position, and that should be all that we need to do. If you're not doing it inside the move root, then you would go here, and in the third tab you have script, and then you have to use a slightly different piece of code to put in there. But we are doing it in the set move root, which makes sense. I mean, if you need to remember where the character is, it's probably because they moved. So that is probably what you're going to do most of the time. So let's try this. It's too bad this quest is so long, so I have to keep going up here. But oh well. Yes. Okay, so now he moves. Now we're free to do whatever. Now let's go in here, and we'll go back out, and look, he is still where he was. You'll notice a little glitch here. Each time we talk to him, he keeps leaving and walking in the same place. So in any case, he did remember where he was supposed to stay, and now we can fix that little glitch. So now we'll have him move, and then we'll do a self switch. So remember that whole thing, self switch A. We don't need to do a global switch, because this is just for this guy. And then we'll do the new event, and we have to choose the actor again, wherever he was. And in fact, now we, and remember, self switch A is on. Set the condition here. So we could, now have him just move around randomly if we wanted to. In fact, I guess I'll just do that. Just have him walking normal speed, and we can have him say hello. Anyway, okay, so that was using a regular switch. Now I wanted to show you another advantage of using self switches. So in this chest, this is a really simple chest we're doing. Just we have the different potions that it's giving us, and then it's doing that other page. So because it's just a self switch and it's not a global switch, what we can do is we can click and copy it, or you can right click and copy it, and then we can paste a bunch of them. And now I will go open these chests. Stuff was found, and if we open our inventory, you'll see 5 potions, 1 high potion. And I'll leave that third one. Now if I go back, so because of the self switches, it remembers, which it would do with a regular switch if we were doing that. But you'll notice that I just had to copy, and now look at my potions, 20 and 4. So so they're all independent treasure chests is the point. they all work, and we can just copy and paste them all over the place. And you know, you would probably change the contents in them and everything. But if you do say a lot of code, like this code that we added that says already open, when you click on it, that's on all of them. I just had to copy and paste all those treasure chests around and didn't have to do any more work. So that is really nice. Now, well, let's, I'll just do this quest just to show that this thing is working. So he's running off somewhere. So he's just set on random, so he's just running around. So that works. Of course, now there's a danger that he would actually run back in there and get in our way a little bit, but whatever. So now, what if we, I'll just delete these other ones. And so I don't have to keep running in there, I'll just put this down here. Now what if I change this to a regular switch? You might be able to guess what's going to happen. So I'll just say chest. That doesn't make much sense, but anyway. So chest is on, delete the self switch, and so instead of using the self switch over here, we'll just use the regular switch that we just made, chest. So that's going to do the exact same thing so far. Instead of the self switch, we're just using a regular global switch. And same thing is going to happen. And now we will copy it and paste a few of them around. And now I'll open one, and look at that. They all opened, but they did not actually animate because, so now if I go to them, they will all say that they're already open. And we only got the 5 potions and the 1 high potion. We did not get the stuff from the other chests. So, as you probably figured out, what happens is these are all just looking at that one switch. So once we trigger that switch on the first one, it doesn't matter which one we open because they all go to the same switch. They all turn this switch on. So then they're all listening for that switch to turn on. So as soon as they see that that switch is turned on, they all go to page 2 and they're all open, but they don't animate because the animation is in this move route here on the first page, and they all just jump immediately to the second page, which is the other reason that we don't get those potions. Because, yeah. So that's the issue there, which might be something you want to do. You could have, let's see. You could have some like items. We'll do some flowers. And let's say took flower. So if you go up, and we want to change the same as characters and action button, took flower is on, and then we will do a new page, and I'm going to leave this blank on purpose, turn on this switch, took flower. So you walk up, click the action button, this switch goes on, and page 2, so it goes to page 2, which is blank, so it looks like you're picking up the flower. Now, if I copy that, so if I did that with a self switch, that would actually make sense, because then it's like you're picking each one individually, just like with the treasure chests where you can open each treasure chest independently. This would be like you're picking the flowers. But I'm going to choose a different flower here. And well, we'd actually have to make this slightly more complicated. So I'm just going to pause it and do it and then come back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. I realized that was going to take me just too long to code that all, and it would be really boring to watch. So, okay, so here's this first one that I that I made where I just did the control switch, and then the second page has the switch on, so just like a self switch but without using a self switch. And then these ones down below, I actually did use a self switch. So like the treasure chest, when you go up to it and hit the action button, even though nothing else happens, it hits the self switch on, and then page 2 has the self switch with a blank graphic, so it looks like you're picking it. And then I'll show you these other 3 after we play test, and just so I can show you what that first part looks like. So if I first go to the self switch ones, like the treasure chests, it looks like I'm picking flowers. I can click on each one and they all disappear, and pretty boring because nothing else is happening. And then if I go up to these ones, remember these use the global switch, so if I pick one, they both disappear. So that's bad. And then I'll show you this third version. So in this case, I decided for this quest or whatever that I would let the player pick one flower and one flower only. So it's their choice. So let's say I pick this one on the right. Oh, whoops. I can't do that because this already set that switch. Sorry. Gotta restart this. Okay, now let's pick this one on the right. And yeah, so ignore those other 2 that disappeared. So it picked the one that I chose, picked the flowers, and these other 2, now if I click on it, it says you already picked one, and you only get to choose one flower, one type of flower. So, and I can just delete these other ones now. So if you see how I did this one, so the first page has the flower graphic on it, which is different for each one. And I am using a self switch, but I'm also using this global switch just because I only want the player to be able to choose one. So as soon as you pick, so if, say you pick this one, it says that you took one, and the self switch goes on. Now the second page has took flower on and tells me that I already picked one and that the flower still exists. And then the third page has the self switch on and this blank graphic. So if you ignore the second page, then this, and you just look at the self switch part, you pick it, the self switch goes on, and then on the third page, self switch is on, and the graphic is blank. But the new part here is that the second page has a regular switch with took flower on, and it tells me I already picked one. And these are all basically the same, just with a different graphic here. So they're all using this global switch, meaning I took a flower, and this is all the same, it's just the graphic is different, and again, self switch is on. And in that way, I can choose any of them, and as soon as I pick one of them, that global switch will go on, the self switch will go on, which makes that individual one disappear, but the other 2 remain, and the other 2, because those self switches never get switched, because it automatically jumps to page 2 once you took any of the flowers, so you'll never be able to pick it again because that self switch is not available now. And I think I mentioned this before, but the way that pages work is in reverse order. So it'll always go to the last page, check that one, and then it'll go to the next one if it does not meet these conditions. So these conditions is just self switch. So first it checks the self switch, and if we picked it, then it's got the self switch, which means it's just going to stay on this page forever. It's never going to change unless we change that self switch. And so if self switch is not on, then it goes to this page and it checks, did we take any flower? And if so, then it stays on this page forever. And otherwise it'll just go to the very first page, which is what it is when you first start. So that is how that works. Now, since we already have this going, I'll just add that on, tack that onto this quest. So let's say for some reason, this is a really strange guard, but he wants you to complete that girl's quest, and he also wants you to pick any flower. He just wants you to pick a flower. So how do we do that? Because if we open this conditional branch, we can set this switch to check if the girl's quest is complete, but only one. We can't choose this and whether or not we picked flowers, which if you've ever done any regular coding before, just by typing it by hand, that's a pretty common thing to do. Say if, X and Y, then do this other thing. Or you could say if X or Y, do this other thing. But this doesn't give us that much power. We can do that if we use a script, but and by script, I just mean typing in something. You're not like linking to one of the scripts like the one that we installed before or anything like that. It's just a script call. So how do we do that? Well, you can do it pretty easily. It's just a little bit clunky by doing another conditional branch. And this time we'll say took flower, and took flower is on, and we don't need to do else. You can do the else condition if you want, but so I will then highlight all this stuff, and I don't know this. I guess I never mentioned this, but it's pretty obvious if you, or should be familiar if you use computers a lot. You can click on the first thing and then hold Shift, click on the last one, and it'll highlight everything in between. Or you can click and you can hold down Control. Maybe Control doesn't work. I don't know. Anyway, I just hold down Shift to highlight all of these at once, and then hit Cut, and then paste it here. And also, if you'll probably notice that you have to click on the top part, the top that has like the @ sign. If you click on any part of this, this down here, it doesn't highlight the whole thing. So anyway, it's just thought I should mention it in case that wasn't clear. So now let's see what we've got. The girl quest is complete, and then it'll go and check this, took flower. If that's also complete, if you took a flower, then it'll do all this stuff. Otherwise, it'll go, so it'll just tell you to complete our quest because we haven't actually changed the text. Now, we could add that else condition. So in that case, it would only get to that if you did complete the quest, but you didn't take a flower. But then what if you did it in the other order? What if you did take a flower, but you didn't complete the quest? So then, sometimes it just doesn't it's not really clear to the player, unless you're checking for all those things so you can tell them exactly what he did. So it's kind of easier to just leave it general and just say, like down here, complete her quest and pick flowers and I'll move. Even though you could complete one or the other and it would still tell you this sort of generic message. But that's why it's good to have a quest guide, which is another script you can get. There are a few different quest logs, and that makes it easier to be clear about exactly what the player has to complete and what he's already completed. So let's play test this and just make sure that's working. And again, we need to go get that stuff, complete her quest, run over here, and oh, he's not saying anything. Well, let's pick these flowers and then talk to him. Great. Okay. So then he moves. Oh yeah, and then it's just such a random. Yeah, okay. So because there is no else condition here, and we did complete this one, it's not getting to this. So I guess it would be a good idea to, well, actually, no. You know what we can do? We can move this to the bottom. So, but if we move it just to the bottom, and actually I'll just get rid of that else condition here. If we just move it to the bottom, even if we complete all this stuff, because it's outside of the condition, it's still going to hit this and say it. So even after we've completed both, the first time we do it, he'll say that, and that's not going to make any sense. So what we can do here after we set the self switch is we can use a label. So we can jump to label, which I haven't actually added the label yet. But quest complete. And then above here, or actually, sorry, below there, because we want to skip that part, then we'll put the label quest complete. So we do both conditions, jump to label, and then it goes down here, so it'll skip over that part. So now that should work. Oops. Well, so let's go talk to him. Complete our quest and pick flowers and I'll move. Okay, that's working because we only completed half of this. Picked some flowers. Great. Okay, now that's working properly. So that's good. So the last thing we have to talk about is variables. So switches are only on or off, but what about if you want more than just on or off? So let's see, how should we do this? I'll just add it to do something. I can just delete this page. Okay, so we'll have it so when you click on this flower, it's like you're smelling the flowers. So it'll say, you smelled the flowers. And then we are going to set a variable, or not just set, we're going to add to a variable. So control variables, and now we have to name one. I'll just do the first one. Flowers smelled. And that's going to default to 0, so that's fine. If you want it to start at some other number, then you'd have to set it ahead of time. So right now we will just say add 1. So flowers smelled plus 1. So it starts at 0. Every time you hit this, it'll add 1 onto there. And that's it. And that's just the first one. I'll just delete these other ones. And so we could copy this all over. So, you could do this as something you can only do one time. So we could use the self switch so that you can only smell it once, and then clicking on it after that just doesn't do anything. Or we'd have it picking the flowers like I did before, but we'll still always keep adding to this variable. So then you can then scatter these all over the place, except I didn't add the self switch in, so it doesn't matter which one you do. So say it's like smell all the flowers in the game is for like an achievement for, like a quest to complete. That way, so then you can put these all over your game as like a little collectible item that everybody hates doing. So of course that on its own doesn't do anything because all it's doing is changing the variable, but then what? So let's just add a little sign over here. Should be one in here. And show text, you smelled. Now, we'll just leave it like that. So remember these little shortcut keys, these control characters. So that very first one on there, \v, and then a number in brackets, replaces it with the value of the nth variable. Now remember, we have to remember the number of the variable that we use. So not the number that it's set to, but just the number of the variable. And that was the first variable, I believe. So we'll just do \v and then the number 1 in brackets and flowers. So you smelled. And then here's where preview kind of comes in handy, because it'll put just the default value in, because you're not running the game. So it's not going to put an accurate number there, but you smelled 0 flowers. And of course, when it gets to 1, it's going to say you smelled 1 flowers, which that's always annoying. Having to, which you can do with a condition to change it if you want to just get rid of the S if it's only 1. But anyway, I'm not going to bother doing all that. Remember, make sure we check our priority, because that was a tile, so it did not change it for us, because that was from the tile set and not a character. And action button is correct. Now let's check to see if this works. And, oh wait, no, that is the flower. Getting mixed up. So you smelled the flowers. So that was like 5 times. You smelled 5 flowers. Well, same one, but whatever. So I can just keep hitting this, and that should change. You smelled 10 flowers. Perfect. Now, what if, let's have this guy, I'm gonna simplify this a bit, actually, and I'll just delete all this other stuff. I cut that first part out, so. Now, so instead of doing those quests, we'll change this to the variable. So this is a very strange guard, like I said. Variable flowers smelled is, and now we can choose something here. So if you want it to be equal to something, probably better to, in this case, to just say greater than or equal to, because then, you know, if you don't know exactly how many times you smelled flowers, it's gonna be hard to do. So we'll just say 3. So he really wants you to experience life, you know? So smell 3 flowers or more, and then he'll do whatever's in here, and he'll say great, and then he'll move out of the way for you, and we can get rid of this jump to label since we're not using that anymore. And all that is the same. And I never actually put anything in here, so let's just put a treasure chest. So 2, 2, 2. Okay, just so it makes sense that we want to get in that walled off garden. And another playtest. So let's just smell it twice and check the sign. Smelled 2 flowers, and we click on him, and you might have noticed I didn't actually put anything in there to tell the player you know, how close we are or what he wants us to do or anything, which of course you should do. And you can use that variable, that \v little shortcut. So then instead of the sign telling you, he's telling you, you smelled X number of flowers, and you could even do some math on it so that he would then say, you need to smell this many more, you know, if it was a high number. So that's 3, so that should be enough. Great. Oh, good thing I didn't put the sign in his way. And there you go. So now that's checking for 3. So back to that question I posed at the very beginning of this video. What if in hers, she doesn't just want 1 potion, she wants 3 potions, or she wants 3 potions and a high potion. So let's add something at the very top here, which is going to be another variable, because if you'll notice, if you go to a conditional branch and we go to items, it only lets you choose if this item is in your inventory. So if you have at least 1, that'll be true. But that's not what we want. We want to know whether you have 3 potions. So what we have to do first is, actually, sorry, I don't want, yeah. Not the conditional branch, but go to variables. So we want to set a new variable, and we'll go to potions you have, whatever. Potions in inventory, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to set it. We don't want to add or anything. We just want to set it to. And now here you can have a variable and set it to another variable. In this case, we want to do game data. So now we want to do items, and we do want to just check regular potions. So potions you have is equal to the potions in your inventory. So it's going to set that number to that variable. And now we can actually open this conditional branch, and instead of doing the item, we will just check that variable. So let's go in here. Potions you have is equal to 3. Again, we want to do greater than or equal to, because she wants 3 potions, so it's fine if you have 10 potions, she'll just take 3. And so that was just a slight change on here. And now we want to change this text. Can I have 3 potions? And now, yes or no, remember we have to go through and change all of these things. So decrease by 3 potions because she's taking 3, and we won't bother changing all this other stuff. You know, this text is wrong and all that. And that text is wrong. But you can change that if you want. I'm not going to waste your time and do it here. So now she's... So let's check our inventory, make sure. So we have 5 potions here. And unfortunately, I didn't check it. I didn't set it so I could just have 1 or something. But so you'll also want to test it to make sure if you only have 1 potion, it won't work. So now let's check our inventory again. And now we have 2 potions. So 5 minus 3 is 2. So that worked. And yeah, so that's right. Now, what if, I guess I kind of already answered this with other things, but what if you want to have her take 3 potions and a high potion? Well, now you'd have to just basically do the same thing, have another variable set to high potions, check that, and then add another nested conditional branch. So first it checks to make sure you have 3 potions, and then it checks to see if you have a high potion. And if all that is true, then it'll go through, take 3 potions, take 1 high potion, and all of that, just like we did with that other event. Now, something I want to really make sure you realize here is that this variable is it's just getting set right here in this event when you talk to her. Now, after that happens, which you could have done by showing you with F9, you know, in the game, because it'll show us what our variables are set to. After I completed this and she took 3 potions from me, this variable was still set to 5 because, you know, I could have changed if I wanted to, but there's no reason really to do that. Because this is just getting set 1 time. It's not linking these together or anything like that. It's not like this variable is always going to equal what your inventory potions are. It's just setting this 1 time. So if I have another person, like say I guess I could just duplicate her. But if I did not check again with that one, and say this is well, I can just change it, whatever. This is some other guy. He's going to change people on the second page. But so this is some other guy, and he also wants 3 potions. So now he wants to check your variable. And if I then get those 5 potions, go talk to her. Can I have 3 potions? Yes. So now here I can show you with F9. Those switches we don't care about. Go all the way down to variables. Potions you have 5. Well, that's wrong. You know we don't have 5 potions anymore. We only have 2. But the variable, that we never told it to check that again or set that again. So now if I go to him with the wrong face, he thinks that we have, or she, whatever, this morphing character thinks that we still have 5 potions, but we don't. So because I copied that, and if I had left it the way it was, it would have worked fine because it would have checked, you know, it would have set that again up here. But a lot of the time, you know, you might not be copying and pasting these events. You might just be creating a new one that's, you know, a totally different character doing something else. So you just have to remember you're going to have to check again, because it's not going to keep setting that. Now, there is a way to get that to continually set, and that's what common events are for. And so in this case, I can basically do that first thing, which was potions you have. I could have just copied it over. Game data and item potions. So potions you have set to potions in inventory. Now this common event, you can call this, so common events you can call from anywhere because they're kind of global. So you can, potions, name it some, this is a weird use of a common event, but anyway, just to show you what's happening. So you can either call something manually, so you can have like an item. One of the things on here is actually under other, you can call a common event. So when you use this one, just because that's happened to be the one that was selected, if I used this item, it would call that common event and it would set that variable for me, that's weird. But that's useful in other cases. In this case, we don't want to do that. But what you can do, if for some reason you need that to constantly, be updated for some reason, you can set the trigger to a parallel process. So parallel process, it's not just auto running, but it's actually running in parallel with everything. So it's using up more of the computer cycles, more processing, because it's constantly checking this. And always be sure to throw a wait command in there, even if it's something small like 5 frames. So 60 frames is 1 second. But you do not want this to be checking every single frame of the game, because that's just this constant checking. And that just would overload it. And now condition switch, this is only on if this if this switch is set. And so check potions. So that was 4, and I need to actually set that. But so now I'm going to get rid of this here. And so she's not going to check. She's not going to set that variable. She's just going to check, just like that other guy. They're just going to check the variable. So we have to make sure that variable is set correctly. And one other thing I'm going to do is up in the corner. This is a good idea to have when you're starting a game, at least on like the starting map. It's usually a good idea to do this. And we'll put this on Autorun. And then we'll also, just to make sure we remember to do it, we'll set the self switch, new page, self switch. So we just want this to run one time, and then as soon as it goes through everything, it's going to do that switch. But now what do we want to add? Well, we'll add that switch that I check potions, because we want that to run right away at the beginning. So we'll turn that on. So this event is just this invisible event up in the corner, and it's just going to do some stuff. So you can also add things like, if you want your player to start out with some amount of gold, or if you want him to start with certain items, then you can add all these in here, and it'll just run one time. As the very first time the player starts the game, he'll get some gold, and then this will turn off, and so it won't keep giving you gold every time you enter the map. Otherwise, every time you entered the map, you might be getting gold or something, and that's not what you want. So in this case, I'm just using this to turn this switch on right at the beginning, and that's it. And then it's going to turn off. And we have it on auto run, so it runs right away. Auto run can lag a little bit, so if it's something for like weather effects, or something where it needs, that needs to be shown as soon as you're entering the map, or like, you don't want any delay at all, because it'll look weird if you walk onto the map and then a split second later, then just storm happens. You just want it to be storming as you walk onto the map. Then you might want to use a parallel process, which is fine as long as you're remembering to turn it off, because when it goes to this, then that's not on parallel process anymore, because you really want to be careful about how many parallel processes you have running at once. And like I said before, with the common event, you want to have a wait in there, and this is a pretty short wait. You could increase that, but if you have a lot of these going, especially without weights in there, then it'll just overload everything. And if you start getting lag in your game, that might be the reason why. So you really want to watch that. So we're setting that. Then that parallel process is just every 5 frames is going to keep doing that, this check, keep setting that variable to our potions. And so we can play test this, and we already have the girl and the guy set. So they're gonna, she says get me a potion, but really she wants 3. So now we have 5 potions. Gave her the 3 potions, and just to double check, hit F9. Potions you have is 2. Now let's go to him, see if he cares. Oh, and now he is not having it because that variable is constantly being updated, unlike it before when it was just her that was checking it. Now the game is always going to know how many potions we have in that variable. And so that's just an example that, unless that's a really big part of your game, giving potions, many potions to people, then that's not something you're going to want to keep checking, because that's just kind of a waste to use up computer time to be checking your potions when you could just do it for each one if you just have a few. But that's something. That's just to demonstrate the concept of it. And so that is self switches and regular switches and variables. And at this point, I think you should know enough, if you've been playing along at home and trying this stuff out, you should know enough to understand the other tutorial videos I've made, which are sort of intermediate. They kind of assume you know a certain amount, like you know how to set variables and things. Even though I still go through the process, I don't really explain everything I'm doing. But I have one to set a morality system so that you can do like a good or evil sort of thing depending on what quest you're doing. And then I have one that expands on that will put an actual on-screen display. So there's a bar that goes up and down to show whether you're good or evil. But that's also something you could do for health or something. So you could have an on-screen health bar and things like that. And then I have, you can check my other tutorials that I have, but those should be, you should be able to understand all those now that you understand these concepts. So go check those out if those interest you at all. And thanks for watching.